This conference will now be recorded.
So we'll continue with the kidney topic. So today we will be discussing about the mechanisms of injury to the glomeruli. So what are the various mechanisms of injury to the glomeruli in the kidney as well as tubules? So mainly our emphasis will be on the glomerular injury. So how the injury occurs at the glomeruli and what are the various types of glomerulonephritis is various types that we will be discussing in this particular class. So pathogenesis of glomerular injury. So we will be discussing. Before that, what are all the clinical manifestations whenever the person has a kidney problem? What are all the manifestations? Renal problems, what are all the manifestations? That also we will be discussing. So how the patient present whenever the patient has a renal problem. So that we will be discussing, and how the injury to the kidney at the level of glomeruli, what are the various mechanisms. So that we will be discussing in this particular class. So very important are the mechanisms of the glomerular injury. So how the glomerular injury occurs. So first class we have dealt with introduction to the kidney, the structure of the glomeruli, and various structures. What are visceral epithelial cells, various cells, so mesangial cells, what are podocytes, all that, and structure of the podocyte, all that we have discussed. So mainly now we will be discussing glomerular injury and various type of glomerulonephritis. Briefly before that, what are all the clinical manifestations that the patient presents when they have a glomerular injury? So very important. So what are the clinical manifestations in the renal disease? So very important are many syndromes which are associated with kidney diseases. So some of which are peculiar to the glomeruli. So there may be some syndromes like Goodpasture syndromes, so which are associated with the renal disease. Sometimes what happens, so some syndromes are associated with the glomerular injury. And not only the glomeruli, so you can have the injury at the level of tubules, at the level of interstitium, as well as blood vessels, which are 4 components of the kidney. So main emphasis will be the injury to the glomeruli. So what important clinical manifestations that you have to remember in the renal disease? So azotemia, it is a metabolic abnormality, biochemical abnormality. So this is a condition where there is elevation in case of blood urea nitrogen as well as creatinine. So elevation in the blood urea nitrogen and creatinine and reduced glomerular filtration rate. Next, pre-renal conditions, what you can have. So in case of kidney, any pre-renal condition which causes kidney damage will cause hypoperfusion of the kidney, that is reduced blood supply, impairs the renal functions, and no parenchymal damage. Now post-renal causes, so whenever there is a post-renal cause of kidney damage, then what will happen? You will have urine outflow obstruction. So these are the clinical manifestations in case of kidney disease. So most important is azotemia, which is raised blood urea nitrogen, and creatinine, which is a biochemical and metabolic abnormality. Due to reduced glomerular filtration rate, you have azotemia. So pre-renal cause, whenever there is a pre-renal cause, so which causes kidney damage, what will happen? There is impairment of the blood supply to the kidney, impairment of the renal function test. However, there is no parenchymal damage. Now, post-renal cause will cause urinary outflow obstruction. Now we have studied about azotemia. Next, uremia. So uremia is not, what is uremia? It is nothing but azotemia, that is raised blood urea and nitrogen, along with clinical signs and symptoms. So with biochemical abnormalities. So what is uremia? Azotemia along with clinical signs and symptoms and biochemical abnormality is uremia. The renal damage, whenever there is renal damage, there is a failure of renal excretory function, and because of that you have metabolic and as well as endocrine alteration. So what are the various conditions associated with renal damage? Uremic gastroenteritis, next peripheral neuropathy, as well as uremic pericarditis. So whenever you have uremia, so all these are the metabolic conditions that you can see, like uremic gastroenteritis, peripheral neuropathy, and as well as uremic pericarditis. So what is uremia? It is nothing but azotemia along with clinical signs and symptoms, along with biochemical abnormality. Whenever there is renal damage, the renal excretory functions are altered and metabolic and endocrine alteration occurs. So what are the conditions associated with uremia? Uremic gastroenteritis, uremic pericarditis, and peripheral neuropathy. Now, very important in kidney, you should be able to understand these particular terms. What is nephritic syndrome? So what is nephrotic syndrome? These are very important. So because whenever you have a structured question, so they usually write what are all the clinical manifestation in nephritic syndrome. So what are all the clinical manifestations in nephrotic syndrome, like they have given in the last year examination questions. So if you know what is nephritic syndrome associated, the clinical manifestation, what is the nephrotic syndrome, then you can understand that it is nephritic and it is nephrotic syndrome. And what are all the conditions where you can have nephritic, what are all the conditions which are having nephrotic. So very important, the differences between the nephritic as well as nephrotic syndrome. So what is acute nephritic syndrome, which is acute in onset? The patient will present with hematuria and also mild to moderate proteinuria. Also, the patient will have mild to moderate proteinuria, hypertension, and oliguria. So all this you can have in case of nephritic syndrome. So acute nephritic syndrome is acute in onset. The patient presents with hematuria and also proteinuria, mild to moderate proteinuria, hypertension, as well as oliguria. So hematuria means blood in the urine. So the patient with nephritic syndrome will have hematuria, proteinuria, hypertension, and oliguria. Next, in nephrotic syndrome, the patient will have, when compared to the nephritic where you have mild to moderate proteinuria, in nephrotic syndrome, the patient will have heavy proteinuria. So protein excreted is greater than 3.5 grams per day. That is heavy proteinuria. And the patient will have hypoalbuminemia, hyperlipidemia, and lipiduria. Very important. So in nephrotic syndrome, the patient will have heavy proteinuria. That is, protein excretion is greater than 3.5 grams per day. Hypoalbuminemia, so reduced albumin level. Hyperlipidemia, that is excess lipid, and lipiduria, lipid excretion in the urine. So the patient will have very important heavy proteinuria greater than 3.5 gram per day, hypoalbuminemia, that is reduced albumin levels, hyperlipidemia, excessive lipid, and lipiduria, that is lipid excretion in the urine. That is in case of nephrotic syndrome. So nephritic is nothing but hematuria, mild to moderate proteinuria, hypertension, as well as oliguria. In nephrotic syndrome, heavy proteinuria, that is greater than 3.5 grams per day, hypoalbuminemia, lipiduria, and hyperlipidemia. Now, asymptomatic hematuria or proteinuria, what does it suggest? That the patient will have mild glomerular injury. So whenever the patient has asymptomatic hematuria or proteinuria, the patient will have mild glomerular injury. Acute renal failure, so patient will have oliguria or anuria and azotemia. Total loss of urine, that is anuria, oliguria, little amount of urine, and azotemia in case of acute, that is renal failure. Chronic renal failure, the patient will have prolonged signs and symptoms, uremia, and it is nothing but end-stage kidney disease. So asymptomatic hematuria or proteinuria indicates that the patient is having mild glomerular injury. In case of acute renal failure, the patient will have oliguria, that is little amount of urine. Anuria means total absence of urine. Azotemia, nothing but raised blood urine and nitrogen, azotemia. In case of chronic renal failure, patient will have prolonged signs and symptom uremia, and also the patient will have end-stage kidney disease. In end-stage kidney, mainly in chronic renal failure, the patient will have uremia. In acute renal failure, anuria, oliguria, and azotemia. And asymptomatic hematuria, usually the patient will have mild glomerular injury. Other manifestations, clinical manifestation. So the patient having urinary tract infection have got pyuria, pus in the urine, bacteriuria, that is bacteria in the urine, and pyelonephritis. So that is pyelonephritis, inflammation of the kidney. So you will have pyelonephritis. Next, nephrolithiasis. The patient will have renal stones as well as hematuria. And very, very important is nephrolithiasis. Nephrolithiasis is very important. Any stones like gallstones or kidney stones are very, very important questions for you. Next, urinary tract obstructions as well as renal tumor. So other clinical manifestation the patient will have is pyuria, that is pus in urine, bacteriuria, and pyelonephritis, that is infection and inflammation of kidney. You will have in pyelonephritis, bacteriuria, and nephrolithiasis, that is kidney stone. So that is renal stone is most common cause for nephrolithiasis as well as hematuria. You also have urinary tract obstruction and other renal tumors. Now we'll come into the main part of main subject, that is so glomerular diseases. So very, very important is pathogenesis of glomerular diseases. Actually, it is a topic which has to be told totally on blackboard. So, but what to do because of the conditions, we have to tell in the PowerPoint. So, but very, very important, you have to understand the mechanism. We have dealt with the structure of the glomeruli in the last class. So now we will be dealing with pathology of the glomerular diseases. What will happen? The types of glomerulonephritis, very, very important. So first, what are the most common causes of chronic renal failure? So it is usually the glomerular diseases. Glomerular diseases will usually cause chronic renal failure. You have primary glomerular disease, that is primary glomerulonephritis or glomerulopathies. Next, secondary glomerular diseases. So means systemic diseases associated with glomerular involvement. Any systemic diseases like systemic lupus erythematosus, systemic diseases which are associated with glomerular disease is secondary glomerular disease. Other important condition is nothing but hereditary glomerular diseases, which we will also discuss in detail. Everything we will be discussing in detail. The clinical and pathological manifestation can be similar in both primary and secondary glomerulonephritis. Important point. So the clinical manifestation, pathological manifestations are similar in both primary and secondary glomerulonephritis. So most common causes of chronic renal failure are glomerular disease. The types of glomerular disease, primary glomerular disease or glomerulonephritis or glomerulopathies. Secondary glomerular diseases are any systemic diseases with glomerular involvement, like systemic lupus erythematosus, diabetes, several conditions which are associated with glomerular disease. Next, hereditary glomerular diseases like Alport syndrome, thin basement membrane disease, Fabry's disease. These are all the hereditary glomerular diseases. Finally, the clinical and pathological manifestations in primary and secondary glomerulonephritis are almost similar. So what are the clinical syndromes or clinical manifestations of the glomerular disease? So you know acute nephritic syndrome. What do you have in acute nephritic syndrome? We've already discussed. Patient will have hematuria, azotemia, that is increased blood urea nitrogen, and proteinuria, which is mild to moderate, edema, as well as hypertension. So the clinical syndrome of glomerular disease is acute nephritic syndrome. So with all this we have discussed, and rapidly proliferating glomerulonephritis. So patient, what the patient will have in rapidly proliferating glomerular nephritis? What are the clinical syndromes in this type of glomerular nephritis, RPGN, or rapidly proliferating glomerular disease. It is a type of glomerular nephritis, primary glomerular nephritis, which we will be discussing. Here the manifestations, you will have acute nephritis, proteinuria, and acute renal failure. So patient will have nephritis, that is acute nephritis, proteinuria, as well as acute renal failure in rapidly proliferating glomerular nephritis. So in the glomerular diseases, you have what is called as acute nephritic syndrome and other clinical manifestations in rapidly proliferating glomerular nephritis. Apart from nephritis, patient will have, apart from proteinuria, acute renal failure. And also you can have nephrotic syndrome. We have also discussed about the nephrotic syndrome, that is massive proteinuria. So when do you call massive proteinuria? Greater than 3.5 grams of protein excreted in the urine, the patient will have massive proteinuria. So that is greater than 3.5 grams of protein excreted in the urine, the patient will have massive proteinuria. Next, hypoalbuminemia, hyperlipidemia, and lipiduria. So all this you can have in case of nephrotic syndrome. So in the nephrotic syndrome, you have greater than 3.5 grams of protein, that is massive proteinuria, greater than 3.5, hypoalbuminemia, hyperlipidemia, and lipiduria. So this is one more syndrome which is associated with glomerular disease. Asymptomatic, already we have discussed. If the patient has asymptomatic hematuria or proteinuria, it means the patient has got glomerular injury. So glomerular injury the patient will have. So one more manifestation is asymptomatic hematuria and proteinuria. That is nothing but a glomerular sign of glomerular injury. So very, very important in any glomerulonephritis. So how a pathologist makes it up, not only the clinical manifestations, not only the laboratory investigations like raised in blood urea, nitrogen, creatinine, not only those. So not only the biochemical investigation, most important are histopathology. So when you get a kidney biopsy, so on light microscopy, so what are the histopathological changes that you see in glomerulonephritis? Very, very important. So our hypercellularity, increased number of cells, because you have an inflammatory condition. So increased number of cells you will have, like neutrophils, monocytes. So increased number of cells you will have. Basement membrane thickening of the basement membrane, hyalinization, and as well as sclerosis. So all this you can see in case of a light microscopy of glomerulonephritis. So light microscopy of glomerulonephritis. So what do you see in case of light microscopy of glomerulonephritis? So you can see that there is hypercellularity in case of glomeruli and thickening of the basement membrane. So there is thickening of the basement membrane, there is hyalinization of the glomeruli, as well as sclerosis of the blood vessels. All these are the alterations. So hypercellularity, thickening of basement membrane, hyalinization of the blood vessels, as well as basement membrane, sclerosis of the blood vessels. All this you can see in case of glomerulonephritis. So now, what are the glomerular diseases? What are the primary glomerulopathies? What are the secondary or systemic glomerulopathies? Very, very important. So primary glomerulopathies are acute diffuse proliferative glomerulonephritis. So the type in case of acute diffuse proliferative glomerulonephritis are post-streptococcal and non-post-streptococcal. We have been discussing about RPGN, that is rapidly proliferative glomerulonephritis or crescentic glomerulonephritis. Next, we have membranous glomerulopathy. Next, minimal change disease. Next, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, IgA nephropathy, and chronic glomerulonephritis. So these are all the primary glomerulopathies. Now, very, very important you have to remember is every glomerulonephritis, apart from light microscopy changes that we have discussed, that is hypercellularity on microscopy, light microscopy, histopathological changes in glomeruli, that is what you see is hypercellularity, thickening of the basement membrane, hyalinization of glomerular and blood vessels as well as sclerosis. So apart from the light microscopy changes, you also have characteristic electron microscopy changes and characteristic immunofluorescence in each type of glomerular disease. So when you talk about the glomerular disease, not only the clinical manifestation, the types of glomerulopathy, when you talk about the microscopy, you should be able to describe under light microscopy what are the findings, under electron microscopy what are the findings, and under immunofluorescence what are the findings. So light microscopy we have already discussed. Now what you have in electron microscopy, depending upon the type of glomerulonephritis, the electron microscopy varies, and depending upon the type, immunofluorescence varies. So immunofluorescence, you have only two types, whether the deposits in the glomeruli are either linear or granular. Depending upon the type of glomerulonephritis, again that changes. So you, depending distinctly, you should know for each type of glomerulonephritis the etiology. Next, clinical manifestation. What are the gross? Any particular thing that you can see on gross. Next, microscopy. Microscopy, you have to describe under light microscopy. Next, electron microscopy. Then, immunofluorescence for each type of glomerulonephritis. This is very, very important. So, what are the types of primary glomerulopathies that you have? Acute diffuse proliferative glomerulopathies. So, that is either streptococcal, that is post-streptococcal, or non-post-streptococcal, that is acute diffuse proliferative glomerulonephritis, RPGN, or rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, or crescentic. So why crescentic? Because you can observe on microscopy various type of crescents. On light and electron microscopy, in the glomeruli you have formation of crescents. Because of these inflammatory cells, you will have crescent formation. So that we'll be discussing when we talk about rapidly proliferative glomerulonephritis. Next, membranous glomerulopathy, minimal change disease, which is usually seen in children after a respiratory tract infection. Next, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, which is another condition. Next, membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis. Next important, IgA nephropathy and chronic glomerulonephritis. So each has a distinct feature. Now, what are the primary glomerulonephritis we have discussed? What are the systemic diseases? That is secondary glomerulonephritis. So what are the causes, secondary causes, systemic causes which can cause glomerulonephritis, like systemic lupus erythematosus, diabetes mellitus, amyloidosis, Goodpasture syndrome. Next, microscopic polyarteritis or polyangiitis, Wegener's granulomatosis, HSP or Hinoix colon purpura, and bacterial endocarditis. So these are the systemic diseases which are associated with the glomerular. So systemic diseases associated with the glomerular are, that is secondary glomerulonephritis, are SLE or systemic lupus erythematosus, diabetes, secondary glomerular involvement secondary to diabetes mellitus, next secondary to amyloidosis, Goodpasture syndrome. Next, microscopic polyangiitis or polyarteritis, like small vessels are involved, which you have learned in the blood vessel chapter. Small vessels which are involved in case of, that is microscopic polyarteritis or polyangiitis. Next, Wegener's granulomatosis, where you have raised ANCA, anti-neutrophilic cytoplasmic antibody, HSP or Hinoix colon purpura, and bacterial endocarditis. So these are the systemic diseases which are associated with glomerular involvement. Next important thing is hereditary glomerular diseases. What are these hereditary diseases? Alport syndrome, which is one condition, hereditary glomerular disease. Next is thin basement membrane. Usually, the basement membrane of the glomeruli has certain thickness. So, but what will happen in case of thin basement membrane? The thickness of the basement membrane will be very much reduced. It will be below some 1 nanometer, or there will be very thin basement membrane. So the thickness will be reduced, basement membrane. So in this particular condition. Next, Fabry's disease. So these are the conditions which are associated with hereditary glomerular diseases. Alport syndrome, thin basement membrane fabrics. So we have discussed about the clinical manifestations in general in kidney, then glomerulonephritis. So what are primary, what are secondary, what are hereditary glomerular diseases we have discussed. And in any glomerular diseases, what are the clinical manifestations and what is rapidly proliferating glomerulonephritis, what are distinct clinical manifestations that we have discussed. And next, what is nephrotic syndrome, what is nephritic syndrome we have discussed. And apart from those things, nephritic and nephrotic syndrome, we have discussed the light microscopy feature in glomerulonephritis. So all that we have discussed. So this is the beginning. Next, we will slowly get into the pathogenesis of glomerulonephritis. So what are various mechanisms which are involved in case of glomerulonephritis? Very, very important. So when you talk about the pathogenesis of glomerulonephritis, you should definitely be remembering about some persons who have contributed to the glomerulonephritis. For example, Richard Bright in 19th century. So that is glomerulonephritis. He called it as Bright's disease. He called it as Bright's disease. And Ellis, the type 1, that is acute glomerulonephritis, and type 2 subacute glomerulonephritis he has contributed. So pathogenesis of glomerulonephritis, whenever you think about, so in 19th century it was Bright, Richard Bright, who had called it as Bright's disease, and Ellis, that is contributed for type 1, that is acute glomerulonephritis, type 2, that is subacute glomerulonephritis. So already we have discussed for any glomerular diseases, very, very important are the light microscopic finding, the next electron microscopic finding, and as well as immunofluorescence. So how the deposits are in that particular glomerulonephritis, so that you can discuss on, that is immunofluorescence. So light microscopy in the glomeruli, what you noticed. So the cellularity, like neutrophils, monocytes, mesangial cells, endothelial cells, all this will be there in the glomeruli. So in glomerulonephritis. So cellularity, what are all the cells that you can appreciate? Neutrophils, monocyte, mesangial cells. We have discussed in the last class what are mesangial cells or supportive cells. So they have contractile function that's similar to that of, so that is macrophages, like similar to macrophages. So these mesangial cells have supportive function to the glomeruli, contractile function similar to the macrophages. Then endothelial cells. So these cells you will see whenever there is increased cellularity in glomerulonephritis. Neutrophils, monocytes, macrophages, that is mesangial cells, and endothelial cells. So there is increased cellularity in light microscopy in glomerulonephritis. So in light microscopy we have finished. Now when you talk about electron microscopy, what do you see? In kidney, electron microscopy has the greatest role. When compared to any other system in kidney, electron microscopy has greatest role. So when you can notice, so the deposit in the glomeruli. So the deposits in the glomeruli can be, that is subepithelium, below the epithelium, or above the epithelium, or subendothelium, below the endothelium. So all these types, subendothelial deposits or subepithelial deposits, all that you can appreciate in the electron microscopy. Very, very important are the deposits. How are the deposits in the kidney? How do you notice? So the kidney glomeruli does not appear very normal. You will have deposits, and the deposits will be in the form of lumps and bumps. So lumps and bumps, and these deposits can be in various locations, above the epithelium or below the epithelium, subepithelium, or they can be along the basement membrane or subendothelium. So various locations of deposits will be there depending upon, and each condition will have distinct type of deposit. So that is the beauty in case of glomerulonephritis. So electron microscopy findings are very, very important to know which type of glomerulonephritis it is. So composition of these deposits. So the deposits can be lumps and bumps, and the location of the deposits you can appreciate in electron microscopy. For example, in case of membranoproliferative non-proliferative glomerulonephritis. So what you have, the deposits will be intramembranous. Along the basement membrane, you will have the deposit, or you can have subendothelial deposits in case of membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis. The deposits may be in membranoproliferative are like tram track, like a train, so along the basement membrane. So distinct type of deposits you can appreciate in various type of glomerulonephritis, which we will discuss. Deposits are in the form of lumps and bumps in case of glomerulonephritis. Very, very important are immunofluorescence. Immunofluorescence has a major role. As much as the electron microscopy, immunofluorescence also has a distinct role in case of glomerulonephritis. So on the kidney, on the glomeruli, you have the immune complex deposition, which you can appreciate on immunofluorescence. Antigen antibodies complexes get deposited, complement components get deposited, and different antibodies can get deposited on the glomeruli, which you appreciate in immunofluorescence. So immunofluorescence, what you will see, so you will have immune complex deposition on the glomeruli, antigen and antibody components which are deposited, complement components as well as different antibodies can be deposited on the glomeruli, which you appreciate under IF. So immunofluorescence, what you can see, immune complexes get deposited, which you can appreciate on immunofluorescence, whether the deposits are either linear deposits or either granular deposit, that you should know. So this will help in typing the type of which type of glomerulonephritis it is, whether it is linear or whether it is a diffuse kind of deposits. So deposits can be immune complexes, deposits can be antigen antibody complexes, complement products, or various kind of antibodies can be deposited either in a linear fashion or in a granular fashion in case of immunofluorescence. And very, very important, very important. So finally, what do you understand? So in case of glomerular injury, we already know that it is the immune mediated injury predominantly that occurs at the level of glomeruli. So immune complexes or immune related injury or immune mechanism which causes injury to the glomeruli. So glomerular injury or the glomerulonephritis is usually immunological. It is immune mechanisms which cause injury to the glomerulonephritis. It is immunological mediated or immunological injury, so which occurs in case of glomeruli. So predominantly it is immunological injury which occurs at the glomeruli. Very, very important. And these are antigen antibody reaction which cause immunological injury to the glomeruli. So both the antigens and antibodies cause the immunological injury or immune mediated injury to the glomeruli. And less frequently it is cell mediated immunity, the immune mechanisms which cause the injury. So major injury to the glomeruli is immune mediated, immunological, and it is usually antigen antibody complexes which cause injury. Less frequently it is other immune mechanism like cell mediated immunity causes glomerular injury. So next, so immune mechanisms. So immune mechanisms which cause the glomerular injury. So we have said that several antigen and antibodies can cause injury. So antibody mediated injury. So an antibody can cause injury to the glomeruli. In situ immune complexes can cause injury to the glomeruli, or a fixed intrinsic tissue antigen can cause glomeruli. So this antigen is nothing but, for example, is NCI. So NCI is a part of the glomerular basement membrane. So that is non-collagenous domain. So the domain of collagen type 4 antigen, NCI is domain of collagen type 4 antigen, which can cause intrinsic, it is there within the glomeruli, which can cause injury to the glomeruli. Example is NCI, which is located in the domain of collagen type 4 antigen. Next, Hayman antigen, which causes membranous glomerulonephritis. Mesangial antigen. So these are nothing but intrinsic fixed tissue antigen. So the injury to the glomeruli can be antibody mediated. So immune complexes, so which are in situ within the glomeruli, or they can be a fixed antigen within the fixed intrinsic tissue antigen in the glomeruli, which can cause injury to the glomeruli. For example, NCI is collagen type 4 antigen, which is located in the glomeruli, which cause injury to the glomeruli. Collagen type 4 antigen, NCI, is collagen type 4 antigen, which causes injury to the glomeruli, leading to anti-glomerular basement membrane nephritis, anti-GBM membrane glomerular basement membrane nephritis. Next, Hayman antigen also causes membranous glomerulonephritis. Hayman antigen causes membranous glomerulonephritis. Next, mesangial antigen can also cause intrinsic fixed antigen, which causes glomerular injury. Next, planted antigens. So what are the planted antigens which cause injury to the glomeruli? So planted antigen in the glomeruli, they can come exogenously from the circulation to the glomeruli. For example, any infectious agents or any drugs exogenous in the circulation, so which can cause injury to the glomeruli, or endogenous within the glomeruli, which can become as antigen. For example, certain DNA, certain nuclear protein, immunoglobulin, or immune complexes and IgA, which can become antigen and cause glomerulonephritis. So planted antigens, so antigens which are in the circulation which cause glomerular injury. Exogenous antigens such as infectious agent, certain drugs can cause glomerular injury. So endogenous antigen which are located within the glomeruli. For example, that is certain DNA can become an antigen to the glomeruli, certain nuclear protein within the glomeruli, immunoglobulin, immune complexes, IgA, so which can be an endogenous antigen. For example, in case of IgA nephropathy, IgA becomes an antigen to the endogenous antigen to the glomeruli. Next, circulating immune complex deposition. Immune complexes which are present in the circulation can get deposited in the glomeruli. So circulating immune complex deposition. Now, endogenous antigen, we have discussed certain DNA, nuclear proteins can become antigen, or tumor antigens can become endogenous antigen. Exogenous antigens, we have already discussed, it is infectious agents. Next, cytotoxic antibodies. Antibodies to particular cells, cytotoxic, are formed which can cause injury. Next, cell mediated. So immune injury can also occur in the glomeruli. And also there is activation of an alternative complement pathway which causes injury to the glomeruli. So any immune complexes which are formed in circulation can cause injury. Certain endogenous antigens such as DNA, nuclear tumor antigen can cause injury to the glomeruli. Certain exogenous antigen like infectious products can cause injury to the glomeruli. Cytotoxic antibodies, that is antibodies which cause injury to the cell, can cause injury to the glomeruli. Cell mediated injury can cause injury to the glomeruli, as well as alternative complement pathway can cause glomerular injury. So in situ immune complex deposition, in situ immune complex. So immune complex within the glomeruli, in situ immune complexes. Antibodies react directly with intrinsic tissue antigen. So the antigen which is present in the glomeruli, so react directly with the antibody, resulting in the formation of in situ immune complexes, or antigen are planted in the glomeruli from the circulation. So in the circulation, there are antigens, and these antigens are planted in the glomeruli, leading to the formation of antigen-antibody complexes, that is nothing but immune complex formation. Anti-tissue antibody-mediated injury. So antigen is in the tissue, and you have an antibody formation which leads to glomerular injury. So in situ immune complexes, so what happens, immune complex formation within the glomeruli which can cause injury. Here what happens, there is intrinsically some tissue antigen, either to antigen in the DNA, either nuclear protein, and to that the antibody response will be there, leading to the formation of immune complexes which causes in situ injury. Similarly, what will happen, the antigens which are in the circulation get planted in the glomeruli, leading to in situ immune complexes, leading to injury to the glomeruli, as well as the tissues will have an antigen to which the antibody, anti-tissue antibody mediated injury to the glomeruli occur. Now, two types mainly. So what are the two main types of injuries to the glomeruli? Mainly it can be immune complexes, that is circulating immune complexes which cause injury to the glomeruli, or anti-glomerular basement membrane antibody induced nephritis. So either two main things, either the immune complexes which are formed in circulation will cause injury to the glomeruli, or anti-glomerular basement membrane antibody induced nephritis or induced injury to the glomeruli. So either circulating immune complexes or antibody which is formed against the glomerular basement membrane, that is anti-GBM antibody, so will induce glomerular injury. So these are the two ways, where the main ways where the injury to the glomeruli. So anti-GBM antibody mediated. So antibody against the glomerular basement membrane. Antibodies are directed against the intrinsic fixed antigen. Some fixed antigens are there, so which are the normal component of the GBM, and antibody is mediated against them. So anti-GBM antibody mediated injury. Antibodies are directed against intrinsic or fixed antigen or intrinsic antigen, so which are the normal component which can induce the injury to the glomerular basement membrane. Anti-GBM antibody induced glomerular nephritis. The antibodies against the fixed antigen in the glomeruli, which are the normal components of GBM, will cause injury to the glomeruli. So circulating immune complexes or anti-GBM antibody induced nephritis will cause injury to the glomeruli. So the rest of it will be talking in the next class. Okay. So we'll continue with this, and if the time permits, we'll be discussing various conditions which are associated with the nephritic syndrome. We will be discussing in the next class. So thank you so much. So next tomorrow also we will have the class in the same timing. So we'll continue in the next class the glomerular injuries, next part of the glomerular injury. So today we have discussed about first class, we have discussed about the structure of the glomeruli, what are all the cells in the glomeruli, what is the structure of glomerulus, all that we have discussed. And today, this particular class, what are the main clinical manifestation, nephrotic and nephritic syndrome we have discussed. So, and also main clinical manifestation, that is biochemical abnormalities we have discussed. Then what is nephrotic, what is nephritic, we have discussed. What are the types of glomerulonephritis we have discussed. So primary, secondary, and also that is hereditary. And what are all the types in primary, secondary, and hereditary we have discussed. And what you have to exactly look in histopathology, light microscopy, what should be looked for in glomerulonephritis, electron microscopy, what we have to look for, immunofluorescence, what we have to look for, what is the main mechanism of injury to the glomerular, which we have discussed, that is immune mechanism. So how the immunological injury occurs at the glomeruli, that also we have discussed. Now rest of the class we will be completing a little more about the glomerular injury, will be finishing, and next we'll be starting the nephritic syndrome. So very, very important is the kidney topic, and glomerular injury is also very important, and the types of glomerulonephritis also we will be discussing in subsequent classes. Thank you so much.